Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi barakatuh, everybody. I'm Preacher Boss, host of the SOS, the Shout Out Show. You know what it is. It's Throwback Thursday, and today's topic is simply Out of Darkness, Finding Clarity. Again, this is Out of Darkness, Finding Clarity. I'm going to give you a little background for where this subject came from. There's been a lot of things that have been going on in the public sector and the not so public sector, personally, things like that. And I thought this was, on Throwback Thursday, it would be kind of a nice revisiting, if you will, of some of the things that we need or some of the things we valued or crafted to help us get through, modern times, contemporary issues that we find ourselves faced with. Now, this is not one of these situations. This is not a cook bar or anything like this. I've selected some things. I'm going to try and weave them in, inshallah, so that they make sense. Believe me, this conversation is not a 100% linear conversation. You have to allow me some leeway, and you have to allow yourself some leeway in some regards to kind of get the mix of where it is. So, with that being said, this thing starts actually two situations. One situation was the loss of a guy, a rapper, icon. His name was Bismarcky. And yesterday I spent some time, I normally don't do this, but yesterday I spent some time watching the live stream of his funeral. Now, it was interesting to watch the play out of the funeral because it was not one of those situations like, people having a grandstand. What I liked was no one had to get up and explain Bismarck's behavior at any point in time in terms of negative behavior. And what they celebrated, this guy was incredibly consistent about who he was as an individual. He stayed himself and how he treated people. And one of the aspects of how he treated people developed this very, very complex and beautiful network of people who learned through biz to care about other people, to think outside of themselves. And so I was thinking about it because there was one part, and there was a woman, she's a rapper named Roxanne Shante. She actually gave Biz his first break as the human beatbox. And she spoke in some regards about how they came out of foster care and how her foster care experience was kind of rough. But she said Biz never had to talk about his foster care experience because he was gifted with good foster parents. The Parkers is their name. And how in that space with the Parkers, he evolved, if you will, this particular gravitas that just reached across all kind of barriers. In fact, if you watch it, if you want to go back and watch it, at some point in time, you feel bad for the people who are still stuck here with this madness, more so than Biz going back to his creator. That's a point of celebration. The other thing that tied this in was there was a versus battle between two rap groups. One's called The Locks and the other one's called Dipset. Now, I'm not going to go into the lyrics or anything like that, but there was a bit of a revisiting during this versus battle where they talk about this is real hip hop, this is New York, and it did kind of take it back to a bit of New York where hip hop, we loved it, but there was always some danger lurking. And it was interesting because out of that space, so many things happened. Out of this dark narrative of a song like The Message, you had so many things happen. Do you realize that before The Message, there were no Muslim, not Muslim, but there weren't really any rap, philanthropical efforts, anything like that? You didn't have that. There was no Will Smith. There was no Jay-Z, who would eventually take that darkness, if you will, and turn it around. And the clarity and the light is a beautiful thing because they shared it with people. If you look behind me, I chose today's background, a lighthouse. Now, if you don't know the functionality of a lighthouse, and you probably do, so I'm going to be redundant anyway. The ideology of a lighthouse is that you have ships that are out to sea. Now, if you've ever been on a big ship or a yacht or something like that, and it moves away from the coastline, you literally don't know which way is land and which way is just more water. The lighthouse functionality was that it would shine a beam of light and it would let the ships know where land was. Now, you can substitute that lighthouse metaphor for a couple things. It could be religion, it could be consciousness, it could be love, family, it could be all those things. And all of them have value and grounding, let me add. But in this case, I said to myself, that darkness has value. And we're going to talk about it when we come back. Preacher Moss, the Shout Out Show. Let's get it started. Hit it. Hey, we're back. We are back, brothers. This is How Are You? We appreciate you. Thank you so much for coming back. I'm Preacher Moss, the host of the Shout Out Show. I'm saying it again in case you missed the opening. Here's the deal. If you're coming on the show for the first time, do us a favor. Go ahead and get in that comment section. If you have something to say, our engineer in the back will put your comment up on the screen. If it has some salt and some weight to it, and we're going to talk about it. And it's a great way to get what's affectionately known as the Shout Out Show, hence the name of the show, the Shout Out Show. We're going to recognize you. We're going to recognize what you believe in. We're going to recognize also your temperament, your ideas, your creativity. While I am the host of the show, I don't own the platform. It's the people that make the show. I keep telling folks that. It is the people who make the show. And we have some excellent people on here. So let's get to our folks because I don't want to waste time. We have a kind of I want to say a broad subject, but it's really a delicately disciplined subject. We probably won't have enough time to get to it, but that's the beauty of it. We don't need all the time to get to it because it's the people's platform. You're going to pull from it what you want. So let me show you about our stars in the building. These are our dedicated viewers. The people come on the show. I mean, they support. We're family. We know each other's family issues, health issues, aspirations. We've laughed together. We had to cry together sometimes, but that is the beauty of a community. So I'm going to introduce you to the Shout Out Show family, the Shout Out Show soldiers, the Shout Out Show community, if you will. Our stars in the building. Let's go ahead and fire them up. So we got Sister Mary Moss, better known as Mama Son, my Mama Sons, going prayers for Miss Eleanor Reed and the Shout Out Show family. Thank you so much, Mom. We appreciate it. All right. We got Sister Reed said, hello, I'm having oh wow, okay. Hello, family. I'm having my procedure, so I will miss today. Love you all. Well, Marie, wherever you are, we hope that's a procedure. It gives you success and increases the balance of your health. Those are good things. Don't be just doing procedures and you're not well. So we hope that you get well, and we'll see you on the show. You're here in spirit, so don't even think about it. We appreciate you. My brother Altaf Rashid, all the way from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, the big white north, brothers and sisters. This is our Canadian ambassador to the show, our main man, Mr. Straight Up, 6 o'clock, straight up, straight down, always on the show with good vibe, good feelings, and just a generosity of his time and his spirit. Thanks so much for coming on the show, brother Altaf. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope this subject matter reaches you and you can share it with some of the folks up there in Toronto. Our Canadian ambassador to the show, Altaf Rashid. Next up, wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, little brother, baby. This is Johnny L. Thomas, personally known as my brother JT. Let me apologize to my brother on air. I reached out to him. Hey, JT, I did a spin some more to you, brother. I was asleep. I texted you. I said, you up? You said, yep. And then I went back to sleep. So forgive me. I owe you a phone call. But thank you so much for coming on the show. And we hope that this subject, if you will, is beneficial. Next up, of course, we got our consultant producer. That would be Satana Whitfield, working the ones and twos at the back of our StreamYard broadcast platform, making sure everything's well and your brother can use his hands. There you go. Wa alaikum assalam rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, sister. Our subject matter is out of darkness, finding clarity. Again, it's out of darkness, finding clarity. One of the things about darkness, metaphorically, it does have a lot of negative connotation. Let's start there. It's associated with the unknown. It's associated with the bleak. The idea of darkness over a period of time can lead to depression, madness, as people used to say. The things that happen in the dark, if you don't know about them, they have to come to the light. It actually, again, talks about that whole idea of the unseen. The dark, I won't say darkness has got a bad rap, or is branded poorly. Darkness is darkness. We tend to forget that before modern technology, human beings lived in a large percentage of darkness, brothers and sisters. A large percentage of darkness. What I mean is, before you had electricity and things like that, you did not have aspects of illumination unless it was daylight. And what does that have to do with what I'm going to talk about today? I'm going to say, brothers and sisters, that when we talk about darkness, it has a function. Like, people can say whatever they want to about the devil. He's this, he's that, or she's this, or she's that. The thing about people talking about the devil, the one thing that you can't say about the devil or Shaitan is that Shaitan doesn't have a purpose. We never have to ask what Shaitan's purpose is. But as human beings, we're always trying to refine and redirect and find our purpose. Think about that. The person who creates the greatest mischief can do so happily knowing I have a purpose. And we as human beings, believers and the like, we struggle. Brothers and sisters, we struggle. We've come through a period of uncertainty and unrest because a lot of our core values we find in the space, in crucial spaces. It didn't matter to other folks. Truth, integrity, and things like that, it didn't matter. The selfishness, if you will, the politicking, things like that. We can get into viruses and vaccines, but I'm talking about the overall aspect of human equity. That I look at you, and you look at me, and I'm like, that's a human being. And so that space says you are worthy of respect and acknowledgement. And we move from that. They say you move the goalposts. So when people kick field goal, it's over here, it's over there. We're trying to make sure that people miss. But I think the thing that is interesting is that when we talk about darkness, we never really particularly talk about it as a process. Coming out of darkness, seeping into darkness. And in fact, one of my favorite songs by War is called Slipping into Darkness. And when it starts, they have a howl and it sounds like it's at night. And then it brings this energy where it's like, whoa, what's going on in the darkness? And what I figured out about 2 years ago about that song was it was a space created musically to replicate the human mind. It was a space created musically to replicate the human mind and the human body. If you think about it, every human being has a system. If you ever have a body that it's closed, right? If you cut your finger, it'll leak. But if you think about it, our bones, our organs, the heart, the lungs, the liver, the spleen, the knees, they all are encased in skin, but they're all encased in darkness. To the point that if you had surgery and you didn't effectively and efficiently make means for an organ that you were exposing, you could effectively damage the organ, or even more so change the functionality of the organ. It doesn't work as well. Now, if you take that idea of our bodies being enclosed in darkness, our spirits are in darkness too. Our spirits are in darkness. And I'll make the point that our spirits are in darkness because we're talking about your spirit shining. It can only shine if it has what? A background of darkness. Here's my point. Can we get to a point where we begin to value the importance of darkness as a process, not as a punishment, as a pathway for clarity, not an endpoint for confusion and chaos? When we talk about these things, I understand a little bit more that even in my own life, it requires patience. It requires patience and a certain type of humbleness that I hope to get to in my life, and I hope you get to it, whereby we have to appreciate the station that we're in. And some of us will be in darkness. When I say darkness, I don't mean physical darkness. I mean the spiritual side of life. We will be in darkness. And can we have the strength and resolve to sit quietly and peacefully, understanding that this is a process, not a punishment? That we began, brothers and sisters, to understand the aspects of why things are done in the darkness. Your body heals essentially in darkness. Blood gets pumped in darkness. Could it be, brothers and sisters, that we have to reevaluate coming out of darkness, understanding that it has a high value and a high content, I want to say a high content brand, if you will, for how we get to happiness and how we get to evolving and how we get to the learning, how we get to building community. And think about this, brothers and sisters. A process like darkness yields certain things. It gives you a bedrock for correctness. It gives you a bedrock for evolving. And it also gives you a bedrock for, I want to say, inventing. Not in the way of the creator, but understanding that you have new functionality. And in that new functionality, you grow, brothers and sisters. You know, I'm going to play a video that reminds me often, and should remind all of us, of particularly those in the Muslim community, that at a point in time, African American Muslims faced a large space of darkness. We were moving from one thing to another thing. And in the world, we had to basically trust, if you will. We had to trust what that transition is going to be. We call it going from the first to the second. So I kind of looked long and hard, and I was like, who encompasses it? And I found the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he was named something else, talking as the representative of Imam Wafdi Muhammad. I want you to take close attention to what he says. And it's more so about process. While he's in the process, while the community is in the process, while Imam Wafdi is in a process, if you will. And I hope to get Sheikh Noor, one of the people who helped teach the early pioneers how to do khutbahs and prepare khutbahs the way they're supposed to be traditionally done. So I'm going to show you this. Make your notes, brothers and sisters, because I'm going to come back and it's going to be quick.
You then have had to deal with many, probably explaining and articulating many of the policy changes that Mr. Muhammad has initiated, including integration. How is that being received both on the outside and inside?
Well, let me say this. As Black people look at the Nation of Islam, we have always liked to classify or characterize the Nation of Islam's development. And if we look at Islam as religion, you never refer to Islam as an integrationist religion. Though in Islam, there are Black Muslims, red Muslims, brown Muslims, yellow Muslims, and white Muslims. When the thrust of the Nation of Islam was to correct a sickening condition of the Black mind, in that we were taught to hate our own Blackness, and the Honorable Master Elijah Muhammad, may peace be upon him, accomplished this through teaching us the history and accomplishments of Black people. But now, as we move into the broad world of Islam, then we have to learn to respect all of the components of that Nation of Islam. So you would never say that Muslims are integrationists with the connotation of integration, but we are Muslims, and every Muslim is the brother of a Muslim.
Minister Farrakhan, in the policy changes, is it true that the Temple number 7 in New York, the name has been changed to Malcolm Shabazz Temple?
That's true. Last week in Chicago, the Honorable W.D. Muhammad, in recognition of the great work that Malcolm X did for the nation when he was among the Nation of Islam, renamed Temple Number 7 as Malcolm Shabazz Mosque Number 7.
This approach, that is saying that Malcolm made great contributions to the nation, is obviously a departure from the previous teachings of the nation. Is that correct?
No, that is not correct. It is historically true and world known that Minister Malcolm made great contributions to the Nation of Islam. But when he departed from the Nation of Islam, there was no mention of Malcolm's accomplishments. Now, since the Honorable W.D. Muhammad has taken over and his mind is a mind of balance and justice, he wants to give balance to the whole Nation of Islam. It is proper that he recognize the work that Minister Malcolm did in establishing Mosque Number 7 and in also helping the growth of the Nation of Islam.
That's huge, brothers and sisters. And the reason I showed that is because you had a rift back then, of course, between Malcolm and Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We don't need to get into that. But you see what happens that when you come out of darkness, understand it's part of a process, things move a lot smoother. Things are a lot more self-identified. And when I say a little bit more self-identified, it means that people are accessible to the learning and the information that's being given out. You know, it's always a scary thing when you present education, but it has strings attached to it. It's always scary when you do something for somebody and you expect something to be done back or vice versa. This is a true representation of process, of people moving from a dark period to another period. And I won't even say light. I think that's scary. Move from dark to light. I think the term is moving from dark to enlightenment. So let's use the actual word, not the dark to light, but darkness to enlightenment. Because the scope of enlightenment means that the illumination doesn't just come just on you. It's around everybody. And if you think about what Minister Farrakhan was talking about, he is talking about, listen, we're coming out of a thing where the light is really enlightenment, and we have to look at everything. Now, if you put it in a context right now, I'm going to be honest and I'm going to be really, really truthful. I think I was in a space that, like a lot of people, you went through hard times, you went through difficulty, you went through challenges. And a lot of us, COVID literally put a lot of us in the dark, literally in the dark. And it's interesting that when you come through something, brothers and sisters, the truth be told, many of us will come through COVID or whatever it is out there, Delta variant. And when we get back to some fashion of normalcy, we're going to look around and we're going to make an assessment about the who, what, when, where, and identities and personalities that are around us. I can be honest. You know, a lot of people were not there during COVID for me. It might be the same for you. And it's like, I don't begrudge the people. You know, this, like I said, pressure busts a pipe, right? But pressure also makes a diamond. My point is, I have to look at each and every case and say, is that something that I really wanted to attach to? Meaning, is that relationship something that's beneficial to where I'm going now? Oftentimes, when you come out of darkness, you have to reassess not only the relationship with other people, you got to reassess the relationship with yourself, and you have to be extremely honest and extremely self-critical about who you are and how you handle the situation, what your new beliefs are. Do you think differently? Are your core values in some way, shape, or form, have they been altered? Have they been strengthened, or have they been undermined? Have you been living this lie that's been exposed to a massive crisis, a once-in-a-lifetime crisis? Or do you find, brothers and sisters, that what you believe is actually strengthened? And more so being strengthened, what you believe is further explained, more so than when it was coming from a book and it was theory, if you will. We are people of application. And in that space of understanding that we are people of application, say, how do we apply it now? One of the things I do lean on, is what if your kid's situation was worse than somebody else's situation? The one thing about dark or darkness, very few people actually compare darkness. It's just dark. We have a universal understanding of light. We know it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, but when it's dark, it's just dark till it starts getting light. At night, we use the word 9 o'clock at night. We don't say 8 o'clock during the day, because at night has a larger connotation and understanding that this is where things are happening. My big brother, Reginald Kitchen, and I used to talk about this. And we used to speak on the idea of the unseen, al-Ghaib. There's a book called Revelations of the Unseen, Futa al-Ghaib. And what it talked about was that we have to break ourselves. We have to break ourselves from our own constrictions. That in some regards, we have to destroy ourselves to get to our better self, our newer self, our more evolved self. It's called fana in Arabic, Fana. We have to experience fana. And a lot of people think that fana is destruction, but it is deconstruction. It is we're going to bulldoze the ego. We're going to bulldoze the arrogance. We're going to bulldoze the pride to get to a higher self. And in some regards, we're going to put ourselves in even deeper darkness because we want larger enlightenment. A lot of times we don't do that. And there's a space that says, yes, there are people who are absolutely in fear of the dark. Darkness doesn't hold these type of opportunities. Darkness means a whole lot of other things that are negative, or I want to say modeled for people not to pull out information that could be beneficial to them. The video you just saw with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Farrakhan speaking about W.D. Muhammad, it's two balances, brothers and sisters. And the reason I showed that clip, is eventually the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan would go back and restart the Nation of Islam. He would leave the W.D. Muhammad community. And while they would have differences, disagreements, I always marvel at the fact that from this mass conversion, if you will, and then the restarting of the NOI, they never shed a drop of blood. Not one drop of blood was shed in this situation. And I always think to myself, the reason why it was because they always had an appreciation of what it was to come out of the darkness. To understand and create value for a process so that when you get to full enlightenment, that reward is greater, more substantial, more accessible, and easily distributed to other people. However we're going to argue theological dogma, this, that, you're a key to da-da-da. I'm not doing that. I'm looking at something that is systemically and foundationally correct about this community, but also correct about other communities too. From the imam to the rabbi to the priest to the person who is the parishioner to the person that doesn't believe in any of those things, to the atheist. I find that this idea, if you will, of seeking out clarity from darkness is divine work. Whether you believe or not, it is religious work, meaning that it is meant to lead you to a certain point. You don't know exactly where you're going, but it's meant to lead you when you are enlightened, and that your light is not one that's just on you. It's a light that shines on other folks. So I can look at certain things. I can look at certain speeches, the significance, if you will, of Farrakhan talking about going back and naming that mosque, Malcolm Shabazz Mosque number 7, is tremendous because it's still there today, I believe. It's still there. But you have to look at literally, and I won't go further. I see my time is up, but you have to appreciate the beauty of it. You have to appreciate the beauty of it. You know, when the light's up, everybody can see what they want to see. But when it's dark, you really got to concentrate on the beauty around you. And if we can just concentrate on that beauty around us and the lessons and the evolved ideas that come our way, and be in the mindset that we're sharing it with other people, when we get to the light, when we get to that clarity, I think that the world, on average, on par, will be a much better place. All right, brothers and sisters, we're going to wrap up. Let me go ahead and get my sponsors in before we jump off. Let's give a shout out to BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. Again, that's BeFinanciallyIndependent.com. You can call 1-888-496-6845. Again, that's 1-888-496-6845. Check them out. And if you're interested in getting a quality graduate or doctoral level Islamic education, you got to check out Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Again, that's Bayan Islamic Graduate School. Go to bayanonline.org. Again, that's bayanonline.org. We're going to give a shout out again, of course, to Brother Kendrick. Give a shout out to Sister Reed. Be careful with that procedure, Sister Reed. Let us know. Keep us updated. Shout out to Miss Eleanor as she recuperates. And shout out to Sister Lorraine Kitchen. Remember, brothers and sisters, as we go through life, you'll find yourself in darkness. But don't sit there scared. Understand that there's a valuation in that thing, that there's power in that space. If you look and you approach and you frame it, and you understand that this is a power, that sometimes you need darkness. Everybody doesn't need to see what you're doing. And that is metaphoric, if you will. Your body functions that way. When I say functions that way as a metaphor, I said, think about it. This is a whole closed system. There's no light that gets through this. It's just through the skin. It doesn't happen. So I'm going to depart, if you will, and I'm gonna make this a request, brothers and sisters, that as we see people who struggle, as we see people who suffer, as we see people who are confused, as we see people who fear darkness because they don't think that they can get out of it, I'm going to ask you to lend your generosity, your compassion, your mercy to those people, to the adults, to the children, and bring them closer to not the light, but enlightenment and clarity. That's our show today, everybody. God bless you. Talk to you soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Shout out, show. Bye-bye now. Hey, everybody, this is your brother, Preacher Moss. Listen, I hope that you enjoyed your Shout Out Show experience. We'll be back with the next show, the next Shout Out Show. A simple ask before you go, please help your brother out. Click that subscribe button, click that notify button, and I'll see you again on this side of the microphone.